We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday, and we're moving through the weekend. We had a very busy week. Friday was a little crazy, too. We had Donald Trump's trial going on, and Hope Hicks was on the witness stand. That didn't go well for Donald Trump. She threw him under the bus. I don't think she intended to be mean to Donald Trump. She was subpoenaed to be the witness, but she was being truthful. And when the truth comes out, Donald Trump has fucking trouble. So that's the good news going into the weekend. And we're going to start next week back again. I believe Hope Hicks is done, and we'll see who comes up next week. Now, I want to give you full disclosure. I want to give you a heads up. Next week, I'm going to be out of town. I'm going to Miami and then to the Keys for a few days. I'll be gone pretty much that whole week, Monday through Friday. I'll still be doing TikToks, assuming they let me do fucking TikToks. I'll get to that in a moment. But I'm recording some podcasts ahead of time. I've recorded a podcast with Ed that will air Tuesday. I recorded a podcast with Eric that will air Wednesday. I believe I'm going to talk to Jace on Thursday and maybe Alona on Friday. So those are all set up. And the reason I've done that is because I don't know what my schedule is going to be. I've got my brother and sister-in-law with me, so I don't know what kind of free time I have. And I want to have a podcast for you there no matter what. Now, that said, there could be some crazy shit that happens next week, probably will happen. And of course, I'll do the TikToks about it. But what I'm thinking I may do is if we get some shit that needs to be talked about, I'll do another podcast, a shorter podcast, maybe 20 minutes or so, and I'll talk about the current shit. Hopefully, keeping everybody up to date, keeping the podcast rolling. So I had to come up with a way to figure this out, and that was the best way I could do it. It's not fun. I did 3 podcasts yesterday, and I'll do a couple today and a couple tomorrow. So there'll always be a podcast there, and I'll do what I can to keep up to date with all the happenings during the week with some extra additional shorter podcast. There, full disclosure. All right. We've got a bunch of emails. Well, not a bunch, several, and we'll check in there. Hi, Mike and fellow Boomer Brigade. I really enjoy listening to you, and you keep me off the ledge. Well, you really bring me in off the ledge, and I appreciate that. I'm glad that I have some benefit to folks other than the information. I agree with you about the blue wave or tsunami coming, but I keep seeing posts on threads saying, well, the swing states are showing positive polling for Trump and the EC will have Trump back in power. I only know enough about the EC that supports what these people are saying. The EC needs to be abolished, which is why Trump won in 2016. Is this unnecessary fear on my part? Yeah, I think it is. I've talked about that. Polls are one thing, but take a look at the fundraising. Donald Trump is only raising about half of what Joe Biden is raising. And if Donald Trump had as much support as Joe Biden, it makes sense that he would have as much money too, but he doesn't. The polls are frequently wrong. They were wrong in 2022 when they told you there would be a red wave. They've been wrong in 2016 when they told you Hillary Clinton would win. Problem with polls is we don't know who funds them. We don't know who they talk to. We don't know the questions they ask, and we don't know what they do with the data once they've compiled it. People have agendas, and they use those polls to push their agendas. A lot of people are worried about Donald Trump winning in November. If he is even the nominee, I say he has no chance. And I'm not the only one saying that. There's smarter people than I, more connected people than I, saying the same thing. It makes no sense that Donald Trump would win the election in November. He lost by 7 million votes in 30 electoral votes in 2020. What has he done to increase his lot coming into 2024? What has he done to gain back the 7 million votes and go beyond that to beat Joe Biden? What has he done? The only thing I've seen is stuff he's done is cost him support and cost him votes. So you don't need to worry about that shit. Donald Trump cannot win. And that's not even including all the other shit that could happen. We've got the Manhattan District Court case. If he gets convicted, that changes a lot too. That changes everything and makes his prospects even worse. So don't worry about that. All right, he goes on to say, I'm really starting to think of gassing my socials. There are a lot of nefarious people or trolls on there. That is another topic for another day. But what do you think about social media policing? I'm sorry. I know we are free to speak, but if we are getting false inputs that fucks with everyone's mental health and has us scared, well, yeah, there's a lot of problems with social media because there are dumb fucks that are allowed to be on there. I'm dealing with a situation myself. I've talked about it before, and I'm starting to get pissed off again about it with TikTok. Almost had it with TikTok at this point. I do my stuff. All my videos are pretty much the same. And there are people out there that have fake accounts using my name, using my picture, and using my videos. These fake accounts have been reported to TikTok multiple times. In fact, yesterday I reported one such account. I got notification back from TikTok and said, yep, we're not going to do anything because there's no violation. But they're using my face, my videos. Apparently, that's not enough for a violation for TikTok. Yet at the same time, I will get violations to the terms of my beta creative program thing where they pay me a little bit of money saying that my videos are not original. Now I keep having to appeal these things and generally they get put back. But why am I having to deal with this shit? Why am I getting violations when I'm just doing what I do? I'm doing my original work, doing my videos like I always do my videos. There's a lot of problems with social media, to be perfectly honest. That coupled with what you suggest, the crazies out there trying to influence people with conspiracy theories and stupid shit. There probably does need to be some policing with it, but then you have to deal with the First Amendment and all this stuff. I'm not sure what can be done, but I hope that once we get past the election in 2024 in November, a lot of these people head back under their rocks because they got nothing to argue about anymore because they got their ass kicked. He goes on to say, as always, I enjoy listening. I have thoughts of coming on the show, but being in Canada, I'm not sure what I have to offer besides conversation. So I'll continue writing long emails. LOL. Take care, and I will listen to you tomorrow. Steve in Canada. Well, Steve, you probably have a lot to talk about. Your perspective from another country is certainly interesting to me and all of us, I would suspect, listening to the show. So don't think just because you live in Canada, you got nothing to say, because I would say otherwise. All you have to do is send me an email, tell me when you want to come on, and we'll get it figured out. So, Steve in Canada, thank you very much. All right, next one comes from Dan. Dan's been on the show before. He's been a guest on the show, and he had a question. And I said, well, just send me an email and I'll answer the question if I can. And the question is this: who would you consider a worse president, Donald Trump, Richard Nixon, or Herbert Hoover? Well, Herbert Hoover and Richard Nixon are bad presidents, but they don't even come close to Donald Trump. Richard Nixon and Herbert Hoover, for their crimes and corruption that they were involved in, don't even approach the idea of trying to overthrow our government and undermine democracy and undermine elections. There is no question Donald Trump is the worst president that we've ever had in this country. And with any luck, he will be the worst president we ever have in this country. So thanks, Dan. Next one comes from Karen. She says, great episode. Have fun in Key West. Try to visit Judy Bloom's bookstore there. She's got a whole section for banned books. I want to visit there one day and meet her. Take care. Happy trails. Well, thank you very much. And as I was saying, I'm going to be out of town this coming week. I'm still going to be active, like I say, on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram and all that stuff. Um, but it's just going to be a little harder to get some of these things done. We are going down to Key West mainly because neither me or my wife or my brother or his wife, my sister-in-law, have ever been there, and we thought, fuck it, let's check it out before it gets too goddamn hot. So we're looking forward to it. And Karen, thank you for the tips and the kind words. All right. So yesterday, Donald Trump's criminal trial was moving along as it has been, not been going very well for Donald Trump. And there was a witness on the stand that was particularly troubling for Donald Trump, Hope Hicks. Now, Hope Hicks has been in the inner circle with Donald Trump all through his presidency and even prior to that. They were very close. Some people even call Hope Hicks the Trump whisperer. When he gets a lot of hands, somehow she had a certain amount of influence to calm his ass down, which is saying something when we're talking about Donald Trump. She began testifying yesterday in the business fraud trial that's got her former boss, whom she described as very involved in the operations media strategy. And that's the first step as to causing problems for Donald Trump. He's basically trying to say, well, with the Stormy Daniels and the Karen McDougal thing, I didn't really do anything. That's all Michael Cohen. But as I've said many times before, Donald Trump is a micromanager. He has to control everything. He is a control freak. So as much as he might want to say that about Michael Cohen, it's just not the case. And Hope Hicks, somebody who's very close to Donald Trump, supports that. Now, recalling her long history with Trump, the clan, Hicks said the Trump campaign was in crisis after the Washington Post in 2016 published a transcript of Trump bragging about his ability to sexually assault women. The audio version of what became known later as the Access Hollywood tape leaked soon after. Now, in it, Trump can be heard telling former Access Hollywood correspondent Billy Bush, when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. You can grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. And clearly, that should have been a problem. That should have been a red flag for any voter of Donald Trump. Now, the development knocked coverage of a Category 4 hurricane from the news, Hicks recalled. I had a good sense that this was going to be a massive story and dominate the news cycle, she said in court Friday. I think there was a consensus amongst us all that the tape was damaging and this was a crisis. Now, prosecutors displayed an urgent email Hicks forwarded to senior members of the campaign regarding the tape and how they should respond. Flagging the email says, then offers two thoughts. Need to hear the tape for sure. Deny, deny, deny. See what's happening here? They don't even know if it's real. They're just going to deny it because that's the only option they really have at this point. Now, Hicks said Trump's response was initially pretty muted compared to the rest of the campaign staff, and that he regarded the tape as fairly standard subject matter for two guys chatting with each other. Oh, yeah, whenever I'm with my buddies, we always talk about sexually assaulting women. For fuck's sake. He thinks he can sell that. Well, apparently he did because the Republicans still voted for him in 2016. That pretty much set the tenor for the campaign's initial, more dismissive public statement, which cast the tape as nothing more than locker room banter. I've been in some locker rooms, and the banter has never been as such. Basically saying it's a private conversation that took place many years ago. Oh, okay. So if you say fucked up shit, as long as it's years ago, it's okay. Now, that failed to quell things, Hicks said. Trump agreed to release a more direct apology. In her recollection, Trump seemed more concerned with the political fallout than anything else. And there's where the crime is. Donald Trump is saying that he was trying to keep it from Melania because he was worried about her sensibilities. The crime comes into play when he's trying to cover it up to affect an election. That is election interference. And Hope Hicks basically backed up that complaint. Now, Hicks's relationship with Trump kind of soured after the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, which she previously said made Trump staffers all look like domestic terrorists. She said that in a text message, I believe, to somebody else on the staff. Now, of course, Trump faces 34 criminal charges for falsifying business records to conceal the hush money payments made in 2016. Prosecutors will likely use the Access Hollywood tape to bolster their depiction of Trump as the type of person who could conceivably have an extramarital affair. Well, that's not surprising. He's had many. Every divorce he's had is because he cheated on his wife. So this is not news. While jurors will not hear the audio of the tape itself, it can be described and quoted from for the jury, and it will have an impact. I mean, I don't know who hasn't heard that audio tape. It was all over the media and social media, and it'll probably be brought up again. The jury certainly knows what the situation is, and that is a pretty disgusting tape. To suggest it's locker room talk and that all guys do it is absolutely ridiculous. I know a lot of guys. I've been in a lot of locker rooms, and that's not the case. People don't talk like that. You know, they might say some things about girls and she's hot or whatever, but the idea of saying I can sexually assault a woman, I don't know of anybody that would be dumb enough to say something like that, save for Donald Trump. Now, when I come out here on the podcast or in TikToks, I frequently talk about the criminality and the corruption of Republicans because there's a lot of it. Every time we turn around, there's more and more examples of crime committed by Republicans. Now, that said, I'd be remiss if I don't bring up those times when Democrats are involved. We talked about Representative Menendez, you know, that clown with he and his wife grifted all kinds of money. He's been indicted. He's going on trial, and he will most likely go to jail. At least I would hope he would go to jail. But yet, there's another one. There's another Democrat that's hip deep in corruption. The Department of Justice indicted Representative Henry Cuellar, a Democrat from Texas, and his wife, Imelda Cuellar, on Friday for bribery, unlawful foreign influence, and money laundering. Nothing big. The indictments come more than 2 years after the federal law enforcement agency raided his home in Laredo, Texas. So he knew this was coming. Now, between 2014 and 2021, the Cuellars accepted about $600,000 in bribes from an oil and gas company owned by the government as Azerbaijan and a Mexico City-based bank. This is what the DOJ says. Now, in exchange for the bribes from the Azerbaijani company, Henry Cuellar promised to influence U.S. foreign policy in favor of Azerbaijan, including in its dispute with neighboring Armenia, according to the DOJ. That's our politicians for us. Those are our representatives filling their pockets and doing the bidding of foreign countries. And it's not just Republicans. I've said this many times. It's not just Republicans. Republicans are the worst at it right now, and we have to put out that fire. But we need to look long and hard at the Democrats that are a criminal element as well. Now, in exchange for the funds from the Mexican bank, the federal government alleges that Henry Cuellar agreed to use his influence against anti-money laundering measures in Congress and the executive branch that threaten the bank's interest. So what he's saying here is, yeah, they want to do some things to protect people from money laundering, but I'll fight against it. Way to go, Henry. He also said he would support legislation to block federal regulation of the payday lending industry. Payday lending industry. We know what a scam that is, and he's going to try to stop that because he can make money from it while these companies are stealing from regular people. This is the thing. These people think of themselves as elite. They are there to serve us. They are completely unaware of what their position is, and they take advantage of it, and they're given the latitude to take advantage of it. That's why this has to stop. I'm glad the DOJ caught this dirty piece of shit. And I hope that after the November election, we can look long and hard at Republicans and Democrats, because I don't care what your party is. If you're stealing and cheating the American public, you need to go to fucking jail. Now, the couple, Henry and his wife Imelda, hid the payments using layers of middlemen and a series of shell companies under Imelda Cuellar's name, according to the DOJ. If convicted, the couple could serve up to 20 years in prison, though lighter sentences are more likely. And why? Because they're in government, they're politicians, they're a part of the elite. I just hope they get some time in jail, because this is egregious. Henry Cuellar denied the charges in a defiant statement earlier in the day on Friday. Now, they did search his home, so I presume that they have some evidence. That would be the reason why they can offer up this indictment. But of course, they're going to deny it and deny and deny, just like Hope Hicks said, deny, 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 even if it's obviously clear that you're guilty. Now, Henry Cuellar went on to say, I want to be clear that both my wife and I are innocent of these allegations. Sorry, don't believe it. He said that on X. Everything I have done in Congress has been to serve the people of South Texas. Well, I beg to differ. Grifting $600,000 to put in your pocket to fight against um, policing of money laundering or payday loan centers, you're not working for the people. You're working against the people and benefiting from it. Now, he said, let me be clear. I'm running for reelection and will win this November. Well, it is Texas, and it's possible that he could win. But if he does win, that is horrific. That is absolutely horrific. That should not happen. And if they have to drag him out of the House of Representatives to throw that motherfucker in jail, well, then let's do that. Now, Henry Cuellar and his wife were released from jail on a $100,000 unsecured bond on Friday. He has agreed to step down from his post as ranking member of the House Appropriations Committee Homeland Security Subcommittee while his case is open. Now, he's just stepping down from leadership. He's not stepping down from his position as a representative. He's going to hold on to that, just like all the Republicans are doing. No matter what crimes they commit, they don't leave until they're kicked out. Now, hoping to capitalize on former President Trump's strong 2020 performance in Texas, predominantly Latino border communities, national Republicans sought to knock the lawmaker out in 2022, but Henry Cuellar, the House last anti-abortion Democrat, triumphed over Casey Garcia, a former aide to Ted Cruz. Yeah, this is a guy who's very similar to Senator Sinema, a Democrat in name only. Also in 2022, Henry Cuellar, one of the House's most conservative Democrats, faced his second consecutive primary challenge from progressive attorney Jessica Cisneros. Now, despite the scrutiny that he endured as a result of the raid on his home a few months earlier, he prevailed in the primary. And there will be a runoff in May to see if he wins. Now, hopefully, this indictment will exclude him from it, and we'll get whatever a good Texas Democrat is. I don't know who the competitor is. I don't know anything about him, but certainly Cuellar needs to go. Wow, that's disappointing. It's disappointing when we see Republicans do that to their people. It's even more disappointing when Democrats do this. And what's even more disappointing is when the electorate, the people, his constituency, don't care if he's a criminal. Fucking don't care. Jesus Christ. Now let's go back to Manhattan and the criminal trial with Donald Trump. Trump's judge launched into Friday's hearing by fact checking the former president's claim that a gag order was stopping him from taking the stand in his own defense. That's what he did. He stepped out after court and said, because of this gag order, I cannot testify, which is absolute bullshit. And there's a few considerations to think about when him saying that. He could have just misspoke, but he did it like 6 or 7 times. So I doubt that was it. His cognitive abilities are so diminished that he didn't know what he was saying. That's possible. The other part of this is he's been saying that he would testify, but we know he's not going to testify. So he's trying to cover his ass and saying, well, I would have testified, but the judge wouldn't let me. Well, the judge clarified that yesterday and said, you can absolutely testify even with the gag order. It has nothing to do with your testimony. Now, Trump made the complaints in front of TV cameras as he left the courtroom after proceedings closed in his trial. He said, I'm not allowed to testify because of the unconstitutional gag order. We're appealing the gag order and let's see what happens. Yeah. How have those appeals been going for you? You've lost every fucking one of them. Now, of course, Trump was fined $9,000 earlier this week for violating the order, which forbids him from talking about potential witnesses, jurors, court staff, and their families in the case, which has hit him with 34 felony charges, falsifying business records and such. Now, Judge Juan Marchand started Friday's hearing by talking directly to Trump and putting him right. And this had to drive Donald Trump crazy. Somebody has the audacity to talk in authority over him, but he has no other options. He's got to listen. The judge said this: there must be a misunderstanding how it impacts Trump's rights to testify, the judge said. I want to say to Mr. Trump, you have an absolute right to testify. The order restricting extrajudicial statements does not restrict you from testifying in any way, as the name order indicates. It only applies to extrajudicial statements. Trump said he intends to take the stand in his own defense in the trial, though several experts have suggested it may not be wise, and Donald Trump has said this before. He was going to testify in the January 6th committee hearings, never showed up. Donald Trump has never testified for anything. The only thing he's done is shown up for depositions because he had to, and it was behind closed doors. In spite of that, we've seen some of the videotapes of those depositions, and he doesn't do well. He's not he's not good with trying to tell the truth. And if you're on the stand and you lie, which he most certainly will, he can't help himself, then he puts himself in the same position that Allen Weisselberg was in. Alvin Bragg has proven that if you lie on the stand, he will put your shit in jail. And I'm sure he can add some time on to whatever time he gets from being convicted in this trial. To his sentence. Donnie, he tries so hard to cover his ass, but he's so bad at it. So fucking bad at it. It's just ridiculous. Now, the former president began the day in court smiling as he whispered to his lawyer, but he turned on a scowl when the cameras showed up before the proceedings. Yeah, he's got to be the tough guy. And I don't know if you've seen the pictures of him in court, but he does not look good. That motherfucker looks like what my mom used to say, rode hard and put away wet. That's what he looked like. He doesn't look like he's doing well. His cognizance is diminishing. You can hear that when he talks out in the hallway. He just says ridiculous shit, and it makes no sense. And clearly, he's not clear how everything works because I can't testify because I've got a gag order. Now, he should know better than that. And maybe it was just bullshit trying to cover his ass for not testifying. Or he's just a dumb motherfucker, which is more than likely the case. And so, it's interesting. I mentioned this in some other podcast upcoming. The whole vibe in the courtroom is weird, but positive for the Democrats. We're hearing stories that when the jury comes in and goes out, nobody looks at Donald Trump. When they're sitting in the jury box, they're not looking at Donald Trump. That's a bad sign when you're in a criminal trial. If they felt any kind of warmth towards you, they would look at you. And clearly that's not the case. In fact, when Hope Hicks came in, she didn't look at him and he didn't look at her at any point during the time she was on the stand or when she walked out, which is interesting because very few people have been closer to Donald Trump than Hope Hicks. But apparently he didn't like what she did at January 6th committee hearings, and she certainly didn't like what went on in court yesterday. She pretty much threw him under the bus. And I don't think it was intentional to be mean because, as I say, she was subpoenaed. She was forced to be there. She did not want to do it. But she understands that Alan Weisselberg went to jail for perjury, so she had to tell the truth. And when people tell the truth, it doesn't go well for dirty diaper Donnie Trump. All right, we will take a quick break and we'll be right back. So, as I mentioned, Donald Trump has been talking some shit. Yeah, I'll testify, I'll testify. But as I pointed out, he said that before and he never does testify. The lawyers know better. They know that Donald Trump can only cause himself some trouble if he testifies. Unless, of course, Melania is forcing him to testify to dispute these claims because these claims and this scandalous situation not only embarrasses Donald Trump, but it embarrasses Melania. And some people have suggested that maybe she's going to force him to testify. I hope she does, because that is going to be disastrous for Donald Trump. I know his lawyers will be fighting for him not to testify, but frankly, the lawyers are doing Donald Trump's bidding completely, in spite of the fact that it makes no legal sense and it puts them in danger with their careers. So who knows what's going to happen? As I said, the Trump goes in to court and he's kind of smiling. But then quickly thereafter, he turned into a scowl when the cameras showed up before proceedings started. And that's what Donald Trump is all about. He's all about performance and not substance. His biggest concern is, how do I look? How am I perceived? And I got to be a tough guy. I'm on trial. I'm not happy about this. And my anger will get people to stop and roll over for me. Well, that may work when you were back in business and people were your yes men and women. It's not going to work in court. Keep trying, motherfucker, but it's not going to work. He went right past the reporters. And then Trump took to his Truth Social platform to hammer out, in all caps, of course, an attack on the hush money trial by repeating the unusual assortment of complaints that he's been subjected to, a witch hunt, of course. He wrote, "This isn't a trial, it's a political campaign, a witch hunt, just like the highly conflicted and biased judge Juan Marchand wanted it to be. I'm sure his political friends and allies, and crooked Joe Biden in particular, will be thrilled that they are getting away with this corrupt, ancient, what did he mean by that? And highly political attack on his 2024 presidential opponent." Now he continued, "These 8-year-old stories, which came out prior to the 2016 election, the voters have already and loudly spoken and have nothing to do with this fake case brought by crooked Soros-backed New York City DA Alvin Bragg. Should not have been allowed to be used. Virtually every legal scholar and expert call it a sham and a disgrace, election interference. It is an insult to American justice." I love how he always does this. He has to throw Soros in to keep the QAnon folks happy. He has to call it a witch hunt because everything that goes against Donald Trump is a witch hunt. Donald Trump is not culpable or guilty of anything in his mind. Everything he's done is absolutely perfect. All you have to do is ask the motherfucker. That's what he'll say. But regardless of whether it was 8 years ago or yesterday, he did commit crimes. This is why he was indicted. This is why he's on trial. And this is why he will most certainly be convicted of multiple felonies. He can fight all he wants. He can cry and whine and scream and bitch and piss and moan, but he's going to be convicted because he broke the law, because he's a fucking criminal. Keep trying, Donnie. Keep fighting. You're getting nowhere quick. And talk about getting nowhere quick. In fact, this person not only is getting nowhere, he's sinking like a bombed out ship. Of course, I'm talking about My Pillow founder and 2020 election result denier, Mike Lindell. He claimed he was attacked in a parking lot before he took to the stage as a warm up to former President Donald Trump's arrival during a rally in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Now, I saw the video. It's a young guy interviewing, asking him about the election and all the things going on. And of course, he was not attacked. He was asked direct questions, and the interviewer expected direct answers, which of course he didn't get. He got lies and bullshit and bluster. And I've seen some pictures of Mike Lindell as of late, and that looks like he's back on the crack train. I mean, his eyes are dark and puffy. His hair's kind of askew. He does not look good. He and Donald Trump both are having some issues, and he still won't let it go. He's like a rabid dog with a fucking bone. No matter whether or not it's going to kill him or not, he doesn't care. He's going to hold on to it to the very end. And in the process, he's going to sink his company, which I think he already has, and he's going to sink himself. All he will have left after this is said and done is a crack addiction. And have you ever seen somebody who is addicted to crack? Oh, it's horrible to see. I mean, these people that are addicted to crack, they turn into something other than themselves. In many cases, depending on how deep they go, they turn into something that's less than human, because it's all about getting that next bit of crack. I hope he's not getting back on it, but with the way his life's going and the fact that he's a former crack addict in the first place, it doesn't bode well for Mike Lindell. Now, as crowds for the 45th president snaked around the parking lot of the Waukesha County Expo Center Wednesday, they were treated to Lindell dressing down a reporter, asking him questions and fact-checking him in real time. Yeah, this interviewer did a good job. He didn't let him go. He didn't let him run. But Mike Lindell did exactly what all Trump-fucks do. They just talk loud and long and try to drown out the interviewer and not address the questions. This guy looked foolish. He looked childish. And he looked like a fucking criminal. Mike Lindell said, "This guy must work for Dominion and Smartmatic." Lindell boomed to the attendees outside the complex ahead of the rally's start. Now, that's a little crazy. Dominion has already beat Fox News to the tune of $800 million in this defamation case. You still going to stick with Dominion and Smartmatic as them stealing the election? Please, motherfucker. Don't insult us with your stupidity. He was seeking MAGA life support while a reporter, Adam Mockler of the Midas Touch, challenged him on his logic behind questioning the outcome of President Joe Biden's victory and Trump's defeat. Some in the waiting queue came to his aid, yelling, "Shut him down." Mockler attempted to explain to Lindell that his efforts to undermine the result of the 2020 election worked to do the bidding of Russia and the president, Vladimir Putin. Believe it or not, that ticked off Lindell. How dare you tell the truth? He didn't say that. I did. He says, "I'm the American dream on steroids." Yeah, former crack addict. He said, "I was an ex-crack addict and I found Jesus Christ." Yeah. But you also found Donald Trump and you raise him up above Jesus Christ and you got exactly what you deserve. You're broke, you're stupid, you're a joke, and you're a pariah in this country. Then Lindell kind of made it personal, as they do. He told Mockler, he says, "You need help. This kid needs prayer. Pray for him." Yeah, go to the religious card. You really come off as a religious guy. Several supportive shouts and boos trickled in from some waiting in line. And I got to tell you, I'm with Old Soul. We've talked about this. These young kids walking into this lion's den, telling the truth, but pissing off these mouth breathing, red meat eating dumb fucks. I wouldn't do it. I mean, there's nothing to be gained. And that's one of the things I have a problem with some of these online media outlets. And don't get me wrong, I like Midas Touch. I like what they do. But sometimes they lean more to the sensational just to get views and just to get followers. And I think it does put these kids in trouble or in danger when they do this. I mean, these fucking people, you don't know what they're going to do. I certainly wouldn't put myself in that position. There is nothing to gain. If you have hopes of changing minds, you might as well throw that away. They aren't going to change their mind. So the only reason you are there is for shock value. And if that's what you have to do to get followers and listeners, cool. That's fine for you. I don't want a part of it. Now, Lindell continued by saying he's part of the problem with this country before pantomiming with his hands covering his eyes. His eyes are closed. He doesn't get it. You think I'm spending all my money? I want to save your country, our country, both of our countries. Oh, you're such a saint. Mockler then informed him that he was being misguided by the former president. You spent all your money because you were conned by Donald Trump, which is true. Of course, Lindell had to come back. He said, Donald Trump has nothing to do with it. Don't you get it? Donald Trump has everything to do with it. You're talking about election fraud because your Lord and Savior didn't get reelected. Donald Trump is the origin of all this bullshit. Mockler then stated the obvious. We're at a Trump rally, dipshit. The reporter informed Lindell that the court shot down most of the election denying cases based on lack of evidence. Um, and of course, he had something to say about that. He he said, but Lindell maintained that every case was tossed because not a judge in the United States looked at any of the evidence based on merit. Well, there was no evidence. That's why they didn't look at it. Now, according to USA Today, out of the 62 lawsuits filed challenging the presidential election, 61 have failed to cause both Democrat and Republican appointed judges, most of them state, to let them go forward. The video then cuts to Lindell taking to the stage later on and kickstarting his speech, characterizing Mockler's questioning as an attack. I know a lot of you were out in the parking lot and probably saw me get attacked by a journalist out there. He didn't get attacked. He was asked pointed questions and he just couldn't answer them. And I thank you for trying to get involved. See, this is what I mean about going out to those sites. It doesn't do any good. It just gives them fuel to complain and whine and cry. And it doesn't do any good other than showing these stupid videos and this shock value to get everybody hyped up to pay more attention. If that's what I have to do to get people to pay attention, I'm just not doing it. And I'm not faulting these people for doing it. Everybody has their strategy, everybody has their business plan. I just don't like it because I think it puts people in danger. It's out there trying to stir things up when you don't need to. These people are dying on the vine, so let them fucking die. All right. Now, because he's fearful of consumer backlash and guilt by association, corporations are starting to heed the advice of corporate consultants and keeping their distance from the Republican Party convention in Milwaukee, where Donald Trump will obviously be the nominee if he makes it that far. We've talked about the financial problems of the Republican Party and Donald Trump. Their fundraising is taking a shit. And now it appears that corporations are backing off, not only from supporting them, but also sponsoring the um, the upcoming convention. Now that's interesting. I've heard some other rumors that they don't even have enough money to put on the convention. The RNC doesn't have the cash to cover the cost to put on a convention. So, needless to say, they need some sponsors to help them pay for it. And now they're having trouble getting that done. Do they actually have the convention? I presume some way, one way or another, they'll figure it out. But they're having a lot of problems. If you're a party, a political party, and you can't even come up with enough cash or enough support to put on a convention, that should be a red flag. You're having problems. You're sinking fast. Now, according to a report from CNBC, advocacy group Color of Change has put potential corporate sponsors on notice that they will be singled out for linking themselves with a party that will be backing the embattled ex-president who is facing the 88 criminal charges. With Color of Change's Rashad Robinson cautioning, I want to make it clear that this is something we are paying attention to. The report notes that the risk-adverse corporations are taking note and so far taking a pass on the July gathering of the Republicans in Wisconsin. Again, you kind of need that convention to show that you have any support. Somebody asked earlier, aren't you afraid that Donald Trump will win in November? Fuck. They're running out of money. Donald Trump doesn't have any money. He's got to feed the monster that is his legal defense. And then he's got to go to running a campaign, and he doesn't have enough money to do it. He's taken over the RNC, but they didn't have a lot of money in the first place. He's drained them dry. So not only does Donald Trump not have the ability to get more money from the RNC, any of the down ballot folks are going to get no support at all. Donald Trump is sinking the Republican Party completely on his own, and they're allowing him to do it. Now, NBC News interviewed more than 15 major corporate fundraisers and consultants with corporate clients. Many expressed concern concerned with a charged political climate that they would worry could backfire on their brand or where an investment would not pay off. Some say they feared being tied to Trump given the litany of the criminal charges against Donald Trump. Others said the environment is too fragile given the unrest exploding at college campuses around the country. Now, according to Greg Goldner, Resolute Consulting, the 88 counts against former President Donald Trump, what he sees today with college protest, all of it has made C-suites very reticent and very deliberate with how they want to engage, if at all. You know, there was a time people would just fucking throw money at them because they wanted the Republicans to win. Well, they still want the Republicans to win, but you know what? They don't want the backlash. And trust me, when they go forward into November and they lose, then all that money they put in, if they put in money, is wasted. They don't want to waste money. And then if they lose in November and they've wasted all this money, then they have to deal with the people that say, you supported Donald Trump. We don't want your fucking products or services anymore. And that's a real concern. This is a no-win situation for corporate sponsors. It's too much of a risk. So a lot of them are going to bail on Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Now, one lobbyist suggested convention sponsorships may not be worth the money spent. Oh, yeah, you figure? No matter the nominee, I think the deal is there is less interest in conventions because they're basically a big TV show. People are sort of like, do I want to pay extra to be on a TV show? What's the value of this thing? And that's a good point. It might have a big viewership because people love a train wreck, and that's exactly what it's going to be. Now, Trump and the baggage that comes with backing him was most often cited as a consideration by many of the corporate donors and consultants. They struggle to reel in some of the major corporate sponsors that have traditionally been willing to back the GOP. Some donors to previous Republican conventions over the last decade have yet to move ahead with any plans to support the GOP event in Milwaukee. And they do this because they're afraid of public outcry for backing Trump, according to 4 people familiar with the matter. Now, and then you ask me, does Donald Trump have a chance to win in November? Based on funding, based on the RNC, and based on the fact that they can't even get sponsors for their convention, yeah, how do you think Donald Trump is going to win? There is nothing that's happened since 2020 that gives Donald Trump more support or more votes or more money. He's got less of everything. And you think he's going to win? Please, motherfucker. All right. There's a company called BF Borgers. It's Trump Media and Technologies Group's independent accounting firm. This company was charged by the Securities and Exchange Commission on Friday with widespread fraud and accused of operating a sham audit mill. Not a surprise. Anything tied to Donald Trump has some criminal aspects to it. The SEC made no allegation of wrongdoing against Truth Social, Trump Media, which is not mentioned in the charges from the regulator. People have said that, well, it could be Donald Trump's company, but maybe not because they represent a lot of companies. Maybe it's somebody else. Well, that's interesting. If this company has a tendency to be a little unethical, it makes sense why Donald Trump would go that way. You know, it's interesting. They're not saying it's tied to True Social, but remember back when the taxes were coming out. Remember Donald Trump was represented by Mazars, which is a highly reputable accounting firm. And do you remember when they fired Donald Trump as a client? And why did they fire Donald Trump as a client? Because they couldn't trust the documents they got from Donald Trump, and they couldn't sign off on these documents saying that they were legit or even real in any way. So it's interesting what they went after this accounting firm for True Social is alleged to have done is the very same thing that Mazars accused Donald Trump of. So I think there's probably something to do with True Social in this whole fucking thing. Now, the agency described this as a massive fraud taking place between January 21 and June 23. That'd be the time when there might be some cause to wonder about Donald Trump. Said that it impacted more than 1,500 SEC filings and more than 500 public companies. The SEC imposed a severe penalty against BF Borgers, permanently suspending the firm from practicing as accountants before the agency effective immediately. The firm and its owner, Benjamin Borgers, also agreed to pay $14 million collectively in fines. Borgers and his sham audit mill have been permanently shut down, Gerber Gruhl, director of the SEC's Enforcement Division, said in a press conference. Public companies have hired BF Borgers will need to find new accounting firms. Think about that. Their business is accounting. They can't act as accountants right now. And when this goes through the judicial system, they may end up getting shut down altogether. Wouldn't that be interesting if a lot of this was tied to Donald Trump's situation? They may hold it back until after the election, but if it is, it's just another example of Donald Trump taking somebody down completely. This is what Donald Trump does. And Trump media spokesperson Shannon Devine told CNN in a statement, Trump media looks forward to working with new auditing partners in accordance with today's SEC order. Yeah, you're going to have to get a new accountant. Can you afford them? I question that. Money's been a problem. And the thing about it is in order for somebody to work for you, you need them to cheat a little bit. Can you find another accounting agency that's willing to do that, willing to risk their very livelihood like Borgers did? Now, according to filings, Borgers served as Trump Media's independent registered accountant firm before the social media company went public in March. Later in March, the audit committee of Trump's media approved the hiring of Borgers as the public company's accounting firm, but not anymore. They are not going to be their accountants anymore. Once again, it seems like everything we see around Donald Trump, like we've said, Donald Trump, everything he touches fucking dies. And BF Borgers Accounting Company is on the verge of death. It's on life support. It can't even do the business it's in business for. All right. We're getting down to the late stages here of the Rational Boomer podcast. And this is kind of interesting. Good news, if you will. Without wielding the gavel or holding a formal job laid out in the Constitution, Representative Hakeem Jeffries might very well be the most powerful person in Congress right now. Without even being Speaker of the House, he wields a lot of power. And he's a formidable man. He's a smart and intelligent man. And frankly, if I was Michael Johnson or any of the other Republicans, I wouldn't fuck with him because he'll take you apart. The minority leader of the House Democrats, it was Jeffries who provided the votes needed to keep the government running despite opposition from House Republicans. Jeffries, who made sure the Democrats delivered the tally to send 95 billion foreign aid to Ukraine and other allies, that was Jeffries. And Jeffries, who, with full force of the House Democratic leadership behind him, decided this week his party would help Speaker Mike Johnson stay on the job rather than being ousted by far-right Republicans led by Marjorie Taylor Greene. They have a slight majority in the House of Representatives, but the Republican Party is weak, largely due to the fact that they are divided. The Democratic Party is unified, and they really have the power, even though they don't have the majority. If something needs to get done in the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson needs Democrats, much to the chagrin of the MAGA group. So Jeffrey Jenkins, a public policy professor at the University of Southern California, has written extensively about Congress. How powerful is Jeffries right now, he said? That's significant power. The decision by Jeffries and the House Democrat leadership team to lend their votes to Johnson's ouster provides a powerful inflection point in what has been a long political season of dysfunction, stalemate, and chaos. That's exactly what's gone on in the House of Representatives. Very little. And that's going to be a big talking point come the election. Well, you gave them the majority, the Republicans, and they didn't do jack shit about it. The only things that passed were because of the Democrats and not the Republicans. By declaring enough is enough, that it's time to turn the page on the Republican tumult, the Democratic leader is flexing his power in a very public and timely way, an attempt to show lawmakers and anyone else watching in dismay at the broken Congress that there can be an alternative approach to governing. And that's what's going to help them win back the majority in a big way in the House of Representatives. Now, Jeffries said from the very beginning of this Congress, House Republicans have visited chaos, dysfunction, and extremism on the American people. Jeffries said that with House Republicans unwilling and unable to get the extreme MAGA Republicans under control, it's going to take a bipartisan coalition and a partnership to accomplish that objective. We need more common sense in Washington, D.C., and less chaos. I think we can all agree on that. Republicans have brought to us nothing but chaos and no productivity. Now, in the House, the minority leader is often seen as the speaker in waiting, the highest ranking official of the party that's out of power, biding their time in hopes of regaining the majority, and with it, the speaker's gavel in the next election. Elected by their own party, it's a job without much formal underpinning. But in Jeffrey's case, the minority leader position has come with enormous power because of how dysfunctional the Republican Party is, filling the political void left by the actual Speaker, Johnson, who commands a fragile, thread-thin Republican majority, and he's constantly under threat from the far-right MAGA fucks that he'll be kicked out. Well, the Democrats are making sure that that's not going to be the case. Now, Representative Pramila Jayapal said he's operating as a shadow speaker on all the important votes. And that's true. That's definitely not what the Republicans expected, but that's what happens. And that's what happens when you lean toward chaos and you lean toward obstructionism and you lean toward getting nothing done. Some things have to get done, like the budget bill, like the funding to Ukraine. So the Democrats can pull together because they are unified, pull together with what power they have and get some things done. And it's because the Republican Party is divided. They can't come together on anything. So you get some reasonable minded Republicans and all of the Democrats, and things get done. People are watching this, people are seeing this. And when it comes to election time in November, it's going to be talked about quite a bit. They're going to talk about this and say the Republicans did nothing for you. Whatever was done was because of the Democrats. So let's just put the Democrats in charge and get some fucking things done. That's a reasonable thing to say, given what we've seen out of the Republican Party in the House of Representatives. And that's why I believe that come November, the Democrats are going to have a big margin and a big majority in the House of Representatives, which will change a lot of things and will actually get some things accomplished. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.